of Survivor's greatest castaways return, and a conflict will ignite in Survivor: heroes versus villains.
Ladies and gentlemen, internet, my name is not Peridium, but don't worry, we're still talking about Survivor in today's video. Actually, I lied. We aren't just talking about Survivor, but we are talking about the massive 20th anniversary Survivor season. And with that, we also have this being my 20th ever Survivor YouTube video.
39 days, 20 people, 1 survivor.
If you are a Survivor fan and you haven't seen any of my videos before, then you must have been living under a rock for the past 20 days. Much like how Russell plays Survivor this season, I think the same can be said about my approach to my Survivor videos. Russell aligns with the big Survivor players. I align with the big Survivor YouTubers. Russell plays Survivor back to back. I make daily Survivor videos. Russell doesn't really know what he's doing out there and just learns as he goes, and I am really learning as I go with this whole YouTube journey as well. With all seriousness, thank you guys all so much for the support on the latest videos. We just hit 300 subscribers, and that is absolutely insane. This has been so much fun, and seeing the same people pop up in my comments every video makes it even cooler having you guys go on the journey with me. Because this is season 20 of Survivor, let's try and get 20 likes on this video, and remember, I have a playlist down in the description containing every single one of these Survivor Retrospective videos. If you haven't seen my video on Survivor fans versus favorites yet, I'm gonna give a quick and obvious spoiler here, as I rank that season really high. So without skipping to the end of this video and cheating, I want you to comment down below if you think I'm gonna rank this season higher or lower than fans versus favorites.
Survivor 20, heroes versus villain.
Much like I did during my Survivor Season 10 video, I want to do the same style of video here. I feel like it's a massive milestone to have this be my 20th daily video, and so to celebrate, I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite moments from the season. And I just want to get right into it with the number 10 spot on our list here, as I don't want to waste any of my time, and of course, I don't want to waste any of your time either. I bet this is not the moment you're thinking about, but I loved the early rivalry we got on the villains tribe as Rob and Russell fight for who will be the alpha around the camp. Looking at these moments as an isolated incident, it's still very interesting, but I think this feud between Rob and Russell holds way more significance looking at Survivor in the grand scheme of things. Like I said during my videos on Marquesas and All-Stars, although Rob is seen in a negative light there, those appearances are so important when you look at how popular of a Survivor player he is today. And coming right off of Samoa, Russell was Survivor's most popular player at the time, making this fight between the two of them so compelling. And of course, if they don't battle it out right here, we most likely don't see them return for Redemption Island, and without Rob winning that season, we also probably don't see him on Island of the Idols or Winners at War. The next moment on our list isn't a specific moment per se, but rather the complete arc that a player received throughout this season of Survivor. I'm talking about the first villainess of Survivor with Jerry Manthe. A big reason this season feels so important and epic is that it's a true culmination of Survivor's deep 10-year history. And at the time, Jerry was the first bad guy on Survivor, and in the peak of Survivor's popularity during the old school era, people on the street despised Jerry, making Survivor a really tough experience for her. I would argue that even though Jerry entered the season as a villain, I think she left the game as a hero and was ultimately a few seconds away from winning a challenge and $1 million in the process. Tyson voting himself out of the game is the next moment on our list, and ultimately, this one is pretty self-explanatory as we've all heard it many times before. The majority of the villains tribe needed to split the votes to Parvati and Russell in case one of them had a hidden immunity idol. Splitting the votes is always risky, and ultimately a risk that Tyson didn't want to take when Russell convinced him to change his vote and vote for Parvati instead. Then a crazy turn of events, Russell plays his idol for Parvati and blindsiding Tyson in the process. This blindside really only works in this situation as coming off of her win in fans versus favorites, Parvati has an enormous threat level with people unwilling to work with her. Additionally, Russell was an unknown factor this season, with his only appearance being the season prior.
It's not rocket science, but I don't have immunity, and anytime I don't have immunity, I feel a little uneasy.
My next pick on our list is a bit of an oddball and more of a behind the scenes moment that you only get to enjoy if you follow the Survivor's journey at Ponderosa after they are voted out of the game. One sad, rainy day on Ponderosa, JT, Coach, and Courtney came together to form the Dragons. And seriously, you need to go check this out for yourself if you don't know what I'm talking about. They even had a reunion this past year to give us some more hits. I am praying that one day they go on tour so I can see the Dragons live and in person. How you feel about the next moment on our list ultimately depends on what you think about two of the most popular players ever. It's just part of the course when having a stellar cast of returning players that some people need to be voted out early, and there's a chance those people could be your favorites. I understand why Survivor decided to play it safe in Winners at War to include the edge of extinction, but I love the higher stakes involved with this season. Part of what makes this season so amazing is that gut-wrenching feeling we get watching at home every single week with the possibility of one of our favorites being voted out. The specific moment that I'm referring to is when Tom convinces JT to betray his alliance to help him vote off Cirie. We get fantastic moments here, including memorable quotes from Tom, but also slamming the point home of the dangerous player Cirie is, and that if she is ever able to make it past the pre-merge, then she will do so well in Survivor.
Fourth person voted out of Survivor, heroes versus villains.
Moments number 5 and number 4 on my list go hand in hand together, and they work so well together that I'm going to be discussing them at the exact same time. JT was once in the debate for one of the greatest Survivor players of all time, achieving the perfect game. But what was he thinking here? The number 5 moment on our list is JT giving his idol to Russell, and number 4 is the amazing double idol play by Parvati. I think some things are better to show and not tell, so let's just roll the clip.
And then work on getting ourselves in the final 3.
Big promises, JT.
Oh my god, I can't believe you wrote your letter.
Hello? Without my debaucherous little villains. And Jeff, I would just like to increase our odds. So, Jerry, that one's for you too.
The number 3 moment we have on our list answers the question that the theme of the season sets out to ask. What is the better way to play Survivor? Who will end up on top? The heroes or the villains? After the disaster of a mistake that JT makes, and with a combination of Parvati's brilliance, the villains are able to control the numbers for the rest of the game. And this moment right here is the main complaint that people have with Survivor heroes versus villains, as people in the community argue that the paganing that takes place is a reason to not consider this season as one of the best of all time. Nah, I gotta disagree with you guys there. A paganing isn't inherently a boring situation if the episodes are still filled with moments to enjoy. Paganings become a problem with boring cast of characters, because then the vote-offs become both predictable and boring. If you look back at Survivor token sheens, you'll notice that the season has a paganing as well, but because of the amazing characters that are shown, the season is still considered to be one of the greats. I think the exact same thing can be said for Survivor heroes versus villains. There are so many amazing moments shown in the post-merge with the Survivor legends interacting with each other that I think it takes some of the negative away from having a predictable boot order. We need to stop talking about the negatives of the season, and so I'm jumping right back into the first episode of Survivor heroes versus villains, as this is the number 2 moment on our list.
Let's get to the chopper! Let's go!
I have discussed time and time again about the importance of setting the tone at the start of a season. Returning player seasons are always able to perform this more successfully as we are already invested into those characters. This right here in Heroes vs Villains is the single best opening sequence to any season of Survivor ever, and I don't think Survivor will ever be able to beat this. After this video is over, do yourself a favor and go back and watch the opening sequence. I literally get goosebumps every time I watch it. Having the choppers roll in, slowly panning the camera up to our characters, the villains chopper coming in after the heroes, going into the discussion about why they're either a hero or a villain, and then of course the brutal first reward challenge to start the game. This is the perfect recipe of how you start a season of Survivor.
A decade older than I was the first time. So to me, it's a test to see if I still got it.
Do you think you can guess what the number 1 moment of the season is? I bet you can guess it. Someone call the queen over as we need to discuss her winning game. Sandra Diaz-Twine, it's now officially your time to shine. This is the moment where Sandra became the queen of Survivor by becoming the first ever 2-time winner of the show. Sandra makes subtle moves along the way to make sure she maneuvers herself through the game the best she can, and with an amazing final tribal council performance, she was able to beat Parvati and Russell in the final 3 with a 6-3-0 vote. Sandra gets a lot of slack for this, as people think she wasn't as deserving as Parvati and Russell. Russell tends to forget the jury decides who wins the game in the end, and Parvati was looped in with Russell, meaning that the jury was mad at her as well. Sandra did what she needed to do to win Survivor again with her anyone but me strategy, and by winning the game 2 times, she deserves the title of being the queen of Survivor and a legend of the game.
Winner of Survivor, heroes versus villains. Sandra.
If this season had a little less of a predictable post-merge, then it would have easily been my favorite season of all time. But even with the paganing that takes place, I still think there is so much fun to be had in this celebration season of Survivor that Survivor fans need to appreciate and love. And I would argue that other than a couple of weird casting choices, that this is the perfect group of players. This was truly the 10-year celebration of Survivor, and it shows with how epic this season would ultimately turn out. My final rating of Survivor Heroes vs Villains is a 9.5 out of 10. Double S tier. please consider subscribing to the channel with a bell turned on so you don't miss any of my future videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, and leave a comment with what your favorite moment of the season was. And with the amazing hidden immunity idol moments that take place this season, then please consider checking out Outcast Originals on Etsy. They make replica Survivor idols, and they sent me the idol from the season. I'll leave a link down in the description containing their store.